So let's talk about strategic napping. Now, you'll remember when we talked about sleep architecture, there is a very light stage of sleep called stage 2, and this is the sweet spot for daytime power naps. Now, there are two important parts of that statement. Power naps means very short. When I talk about daytime power naps or these short strategic naps, we are talking about no more than 20 minutes of sleep. And in fact, I don't even want you to get quite 20. Why? Because if you get more than that, especially if you're carrying around sleep debt, as so many of us are, you are very likely to go into deep slow wave sleep. And as important as that is, nocturnally, if you go into this deep sleep during the day, you will feel groggy when you wake up. It will not benefit your performance in the same way these very short stage 2 naps do. So in order to make sure you don't run the risk of falling into that deep slow wave or delta sleep, you want to keep the naps very short. So when I say 20 minutes, I mean set your alarm for 20 minutes. And then if you sleep for 18, great. If you only sleep for 6 or 7, great. Because it turns out that the brain doesn't need more than about 6, 7 minutes of sleep or so. 10 is great to get these massive cognitive performance boosts. And really, when it comes to benefiting performance during the day, when you start to flag, say midday after you've already had half a day occupied by work, is to take a daytime nap. It's better than drinking caffeine. It's even better than exercise in some cases. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is to see, even on school days, if there's a way you can incorporate this. My Harvard advisor used to go into his office every day, close the door, and come out 30 minutes later. So for me, I was thinking, wow, this guy's a genius. If I want to be that good at what I do, I should be napping. To be honest, we're not even understanding very well from a biological perspective why this works as well as it does. But here's why I think it works. So we talked about how much sleep benefits memory consolidation. But what I didn't tell you is when you consolidate memories, you encode them into the hippocampus, which remember is so important for learning. But then when those memories get consolidated, they actually get integrated and really transferred, if you will, into these long-term storage sites in the cortex in a completely different part of the brain. So the hippocampus, it may almost get saturated or fatigued after you've been up for one half of the day. Think about it. You're at school, you're busy, you're navigating all sorts of stuff, you're being bombarded with incoming information. And by the time it gets to about noon or 1, like right around lunchtime, your hippocampus may be fatigued. So if you sleep even for a few minutes, it cleans the cache, if you will. Think about that. It wipes it clean because the information that's being stored in the hippocampus gets moved to a different part of the brain. And it only takes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes of sleep to do that. So then when you wake up, the hippocampus is clear again and it's ready to take in new information. It's the only way we can really make sense of just why napping, even for these very brief amounts of time, are so beneficial for performance, because we see people having like a 2.5-fold jump in almost any kind of performance we can measure if they take these really brief daytime naps. It's sort of surprising it helps that much, but it does. So you take this power nap, you set your alarm for 20 minutes, you sleep for a few most likely. By the way, especially people who say, oh, I'm just not a napping type, I've never been able to nap. That's true for about 20% of people who say that, but the other 80%, if you have them laying down at about the same time each day, and ideally in the same location, they start to sleep. But remember, stage 2 sleep is so light, you may not even be aware you've fallen asleep. And that is okay. If you get into that stage 2 for just a few minutes, it's incredibly beneficial. The other thing I told you about sleep architecture, though, is those rapid eye movement sleep or ultradian cycles take about 90 minutes. So on weekends, devote these 90-minute segments to your sleep. And the reason it's important to do 90 minutes or 20 minutes is because 20 minutes keeps you safe from going into and waking out of that deep, slow wave sleep, which, again, good for you at night. But if you wake up out of it, you will feel groggy and your performance may actually be impaired. Whereas if you just nap in that stage 2, you're going to have these massive performance improvements. And then if you go through that full 90-minute ultradian cycle, you leverage the full power of naps. And this becomes very important if you're one of those people who is curtailing your sleep more often than you'd like to. You're just not getting quite as much sleep as you'd like to day in and day out for whatever reason. This is one of the ways you can chip away at that sleep debt. And I mean, either building in a 20-minute nap in the afternoon as often as you can, and or taking the occasional 90-minute nap to help your brain dump some of that sleep debt. So napping really is incredibly good for performance. And just one more thing, if you're somebody who wants to try these 20-minute naps, you might want to try what's known as a caffeine nap. And it's not like you take the nap, wake up, and drink some coffee. It's actually the opposite. You're going to consume the caffeine first, then take the nap, with the idea that as you're waking up and starting to get the full benefit of the nap, you're also getting the benefit of the caffeine. They're additive, and they very much help you with performance. And that's one of the things you can do if you're just sleep deprived and exhausted, but you have to perform on a given day. So naps really are something that I wish we could get the world to build into people's sort of daily rhythm. And the last thing I'll say about that is if you are one of these people who just can't fall asleep, or you just know that your environment isn't going to allow for that, I want you to engage in the next best thing, which I call sleep proxies. And these are just other ways of taking the brain offline, right? Like you're all online right now, you're listening to me, your brains are switched on, you're encoding information. When you take them offline, the gold standard offline brain state is sleep, but the next best thing is meditation, doing a relaxation exercise, getting out and taking a reflective walk, getting some exercise, listening to some music, but taking the brain off task for a while, because when you do that, it flips it into consolidation mode and the networks change in the same type of way. So it's not quite as good as sleep, but it's almost as good. So if you can't nap for one reason or another, try to engage in one of these sleep proxies.